On this Sunday night, Ebola declared a health emergency of international concern. The WHO flags a deadly outbreak in Congo and Uganda.
The region where it is happening is highly volatile, with the humanitarian situation going on.
And why this strain of Ebola could easily spread within Africa and beyond. Defying a Chinese threat.
That makes Michael Chong's visit a signal of Canadian sovereignty.
Why a Conservative MP says he's visiting Taiwanese officials in Taipei. No off-ramp to the war in Iran and no relief at the pumps as the U.S. president's latest remarks do little to allay concerns. And the world champion of tree planting.
Planting is not only like competitive or like a sport.
For the Canadians setting records here and around the world, it goes much deeper.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A global health emergency has been declared over a rare and deadly strain of the Ebola virus. The World Health Organization says the outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda is behind at least 80 suspected deaths and 246 suspected cases. While it does not meet the threshold for a pandemic, officials warn the situation is dangerous and could be much larger than detected. As Vincent McAviney reports, there's a significant risk of spread.
Preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. Healthcare workers in the Democratic Republic of Congo have been through 16 previous Ebola outbreaks, but this one could be even more challenging. There are 3 known strains of the virus. This outbreak involves the Bundibugyo strain, the least common variant. Because of its rarity, there are no approved vaccines, treatments, or specific diagnostic tests. Ebola is highly contagious, spreading through contact with infected bodily fluids, such as blood and vomit. It carries a high fatality rate, especially in deprived regions, like Ituri province, where access to intensive care is limited. Due to the incubation period, up to 21 days, travellers can potentially spread the virus far and wide. Cases have been reported in neighbouring Uganda, with some, including at least 1 death in its capital, Kampala.
The region where it is happening is highly volatile, with the humanitarian situation going on and the population moving around from South Sudan to Uganda and other parts.
The World Health Organization has released $500,000 from its contingency fund for emergencies to immediately support the response. More international support will be needed, but Uganda's health ministry believes the country is better prepared.
In the past, we would run away from Ebola patients. We leave people. We can't even handle them to give them some resuscitation, some infusions. But now, as our care has improved, we've learned that we can reduce the fatality rate.
Over the past 50 years, Ebola has killed around 15,000 people across African nations. Health authorities in this region hope that despite the lack of specific treatments for this variant, their deeper understanding of the virus and how to contain it should help prevent the toll from rising much higher. Vincent McAviney, Global News, London.
Lab testing has now confirmed a presumptive case of Andes Hantavirus in Canada. The Public Health Agency of Canada says the BC case involves a passenger from the MV Hondius cruise ship, the focus of a recent outbreak. The patient's traveling partner has tested negative, but is in a Victoria area hospital as a precaution, and all high-risk contacts are isolating and being closely monitored. Health officials say the overall risk to Canadians is low. The hantavirus-stricken ship is expected to arrive in the Netherlands tomorrow. In Edmonton, another patient has died waiting for care in a hospital. It happened on May 8th. Doctors say the man arrived at the Royal Alexandra Hospital and died several hours later in a waiting room.
While I can do one-on-one care well, I cannot see or manage the 50 standing behind you in a queue. And so that is where the system needs to be accountable.
The Alberta Medical Association says the man received some treatment in an emergency room, but because there was no bed space, he was left in a waiting room. Alberta Health Services is investigating. 6 months ago, a 44-year-old man died at another Edmonton hospital after waiting for nearly 8 hours. Prominent Conservative MP Michael Chong is in Taiwan meeting with the president and other top officials. His trip follows a recent warning from China's ambassador not to visit, and just days after the U.S. president cautioned Taiwan against officially declaring its independence. Nathanial Dove has more on the MP signaling Canadian support at a precarious time.
Taiwan independence means the country does not belong to China. Blunt words from Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te. A message also being shared by Conservative MP Michael Chong. In a statement, Chong says he is visiting Taiwan to show solidarity with a democracy at the front lines of intimidation from China, and to assert Canadian sovereignty after a warning from China's ambassador to Canada about Canadian MPs traveling to Taiwan. Chong also says he'll meet with Lai and other officials on Wednesday. In response, the Chinese embassy tells Global News certain Canadian MPs' visit to the Taiwan region sends a wrong message of support for, quote, Taiwan independence. China firmly opposes this.
He feels very strongly. I made no commitment either way.
Chong's visit comes days after U.S. President Donald Trump met China's leader in Beijing when Xi Jinping warned differences over Taiwan could lead to conflict between the two countries, and against Trump approving an $11 billion U.S. arms package for the democracy. Taiwan held live fire drills just before the Beijing summit. On Sunday, Lai also said Taiwan would not escalate tensions and that it will not yield. Beijing claims Taiwan is part of China.
It's trying to condition everyone's behavior to create the conditions in which it can annex Taiwan. That is
Michael Kovrig, who China once detained for nearly 3 years, says Beijing sees the U.S. as growing weaker and less organized, and so is pushing to gain more influence.
That makes Michael Chong's visit a signal of Canadian sovereignty.
Global News asked the federal government for comment and if it knew of Chong's trip beforehand. We did not receive a response by deadline. Canada and Taiwan both must coordinate with partners to maintain leverage, Kovrig says, because Taiwan's independence is important to Canada for trade and tech, but also for democracy. Nathanial Dove, Global News, Toronto.
In the Middle East, the fragile ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran is hanging by a thread tonight as strikes on other countries in the region continue. The violence is ramping up uncertainty in the global economy, especially with the Strait of Hormuz under a blockade, driving up fuel prices everywhere. Candace Cole has the latest.
As the war in the Middle East drags on, escalations among Iran, Israel, and other Persian Gulf countries continue to test the fragile ceasefires in the region. Sunday, a drone strike on a generator near the Baraka nuclear power plant in the United Arab Emirates sparked a fire in the area after UAE forces struck down 2 of the 3 drones that breached its western border. There's no word yet on who's responsible, but the UAE's foreign minister insists it has the right to respond to such, quote, terrorist acts. This as Israel continues to strike in southern Lebanon in its pursuit to eradicate the Iranian-backed Hezbollah, despite agreeing to extend its ceasefire by 45 days on Friday. While gas prices continue to reach historic highs in the U.S., Canada, and around the world due to the continued closure of the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil supply passes through. A new CBS News YouGov poll finds only 31% of Americans say they have a clear understanding of what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz, and the number of Americans reporting financial difficulty due to the sharp rise in gas prices jumped 8% since April.
In addition to wanting to have low gas prices, we don't want our children or grandchildren to inherit a world where Iran has a nuclear weapon. So the president's focused on affordability in as many ways that he can.
But that's not the tone U.S. President Donald Trump took last week.
The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about
American financial situation. I don't think about anybody.
Iran's parliamentary speaker met with Pakistan's interior minister Sunday in an effort to revive peace talks with the U.S. after Iran's latest proposal was rejected. According to Iran's Fars news agency, the U.S. is refusing to pay for war damages, wants Iran to transfer 400 kilos of enriched uranium to the U.S., and did not agree to lift sanctions on Iranian assets. Candace Cole, Global News, Washington.
A political win for the U.S. president in Louisiana, where a Republican senator and political foe of Donald Trump has lost that state's primary.
I've been able to participate in democracy. And when you participate in democracy, sometimes it doesn't turn out the way you want it to. But you don't pout, you don't whine, you don't claim the election was stolen.
Bill Cassidy has been a state senator for 12 years. He was one of the only Senate Republicans who voted to convict Trump when he was impeached after the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol. Cassidy is the first elected U.S. senator to lose a primary since 2012. Ukraine launched a large-scale drone attack on Russia, killing at least 4 people. The overnight strikes near Moscow involved 600 drones targeting 14 regions. It was Ukraine's biggest assault on Russia in a year and shows its increasing ability to carry out long-range attacks and penetrate air defenses. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the attacks are a justified response to Russia's ongoing war. The winner of the world's biggest live music competition, Eurovision, arrived home to a hero's welcome in Bulgaria today. Hundreds of fans of pop star Dara cheered and waved Bulgarian flags. The 27-year-old won last night with her infectious party anthem Bangaranga in a dramatic final. It's the first time Bulgaria has won the contest. 24 other countries competed, including runner-up Israel, whose participation prompted 5 nations to boycott the competition. Denouncing homophobia and honoring 2 trailblazing Canadians. Coming up, recognizing the first gay couple to enter into a civil union in this country and the work that remains. Plus, sneezing early and often, the best ways to deal with seasonal allergies and what not to do. Some sad news in the Canadian music world tonight. Award-winning Indigenous cellist and composer Chris Dirksen has died in a car crash in northern Alberta. The Cree musician was reportedly traveling from her father's funeral with her wife Rebecca Benson when the crash occurred. Dirksen did not survive. Benson is said to be in critical condition. A Juno nominee, Dirksen has performed and written music for symphonies across Canada and around the world, fusing Indigenous and modern sounds with classical music. In a Facebook post, her aunt says, "Chris may have left us prematurely, but her profound legacy and enchanting music will perpetually uplift me." Dirksen was 45 years old. Community leaders, activists, and elected officials gathered in Montreal today and in other communities across the country to mark the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia. Today is also the 25th anniversary of an historic march that paved the path for landmark human rights decisions against discrimination based on sexual orientation. Elizabeth Zagalis has more.
An immense merci.
Merci. The quaint backyard event honored gay rights pioneer Theo Wouters and his late husband, Roger Thibault, who faced years of harassment for being gay in the early 2000s.
Today is a reminder, be vigilant and don't accept it.
Wouters and Thibault became the first same-sex couple in Canada to enter a civil union in 2002, following a historic 1,500-person protest in the Montreal suburb of Pointe-Claire.
Roger and I, we had 10 years of intense harassment, and it was just devastating to our relationship.
The couple went on to win a landmark human rights tribunal case in 2008 that helped establish stronger protections against homophobic harassment and discrimination.
Every queer person can live a happy life.
To mark 25 years since the West Island protest, Social Solidarity and Community Action Minister Chantal Rouleau awarded Wouters the National Assembly Medal of Honor.
Your strength, your deep commitment to justice, Your legacy lives on in every step toward equality.
Quebec Liberal MNA Greg Kelly also took the opportunity to speak on the importance of human dignity and respect.
We have to remain a welcoming society because unfortunately we can look around at what's going on in all Western democracies, and intolerance and hatred is on the rise.
KO Quebec volunteer Greg Blatchford says he's seen an uptick in discrimination and shares Kelly's concerns.
We are worried there's been a downturn in acceptance where it's become more possible to voice homophobic and transphobic comments, which we're very sad to see.
Wooters, who was honored to receive a medal and recognition, says he will continue to make sure the next generations won't face the challenges he did.
As long as I'm able, I will push the agenda.
Elizabeth Ogalis, Global News, Point Claire.
LGBTQ supporters marched through the Ukrainian city of Odessa today for the first time since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. Participants urged Parliament to withdraw a draft bill which could overhaul previous rulings supporting same-sex couples and transgender people. A separate counter-demonstration was also held in the city with participants chanting tradition, family, order. Still ahead, dealing with a seasonal scourge, how to best cope with an intense allergy season. With snowfall in several parts of the country this weekend, it appears spring is taking its time, but not where seasonal allergies are concerned. Catherine Ward has some simple do's and don'ts for those who are suffering.
Allergists say this year has been rough, and the seasonal sabotage has been in part due to that pesky pollen showing up earlier than usual.
Tree pollen season, our local pollen counter was actually giving us reports that there was detectable pollen as early as March 3rd, which was actually quite cold.
While trees, grass, and mold can unwillingly force people into the sinus Olympics, doctors say there are some simple tricks that can help.
Number 1, get ahead.
The best defense is a good offense. The first mistake that people make related to their seasonal allergies is waiting until they start to feel miserable and then starting to use the medications. So start your medications about 2 to 3 weeks before your known pollen allergy season.
Number 2, use the right medication.
First generation antihistamines are not recommended by me, the vast majority of allergists, because the side effect profile is not favorable. There are much better options out there. So this includes Benadryl, chlorpheniramine, which is in a lot of cold and flu medications, doxylamine, and then hydroxyzine. So these are all examples of older antihistamines, and we generally prefer the second generation non-sedating antihistamines.
Number 3, using a nasal spray. Check your aim.
For the nose spray to work properly, you should be aiming it not up, not towards the middle, but in and outwards towards your ear. So I usually make this crisscross motion with my hand so people remember that it should be directly towards the ear, because imagine that the nose goes back this way.
And number 4, modify your environment when necessary.
Sometimes if people have severe symptoms, they even wear a mask. When you come back into the house, doing a nasal flush with saline, showering things off your hair, changing clothes is helpful. Keeping the windows closed between 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. is helpful because that's when the pollen counts tend to be at their highest.
Catherine Ward, Global News, Toronto.
Next, 2 million and counting. The Canadian tree planter setting records with his incredible athleticism. It just wasn't their night. Fans at the Bell Centre had high hopes the Montreal Canadiens would punch their ticket to the Eastern Conference Finals. Instead, they lost 8-3 to the Buffalo Sabres, meaning the Habs now have to win Game 7 in Buffalo Monday to stay alive. Staying with athleticism, the very idea of being bent over for hours at a time is enough to give most of us a backache, but that's all in a long day's work for Antoine Moses. The tree planter has a unique ability and incredible endurance. And as Paul Johnson shows us, both have garnered the young Canadian another epic world record.
Slogging through the heat and muck on the coast of Kenya.
You're watching the remarkable story of the Canadian who is quite possibly the world's most accomplished tree planter.
So I started tree planting when I was 17 years old as a summer job.
Meet Antoine Moses, Quebecer turned Vancouverite, who's parlayed his abilities as a tree planter into something much bigger.
For me, planting is not only like competitive or like a sport, it's also like there's a deeper meaning of creating life.
Watching Moses at work is a study in efficiency and stamina. Over his 10-year career, he's planted more than 2 million trees. And in 2021, set a world record in Alberta when he planted more than 23,000 trees in 24 hours. It got noticed.
Saw he was doing some cool stuff on Instagram, and I was thinking, is he really planting these many trees?
David Luba is the co-founder of the Vancouver-based tech platform Veritree. They help companies that want to get into reforestation to find a way to do it and verify that the trees were planted. When a company wanted to restore a mangrove ecosystem in Kenya, Luba thought, I think I've got the guy.
It was just a perfect match. Our transparency and network, and his athleticism, and him inspiring that next generation of people.
So with a plan to battle the tides, heat, and muck of the Kenyan coastline, Moses recently set out to chase another world record. How many mangrove trees could he plant in 24 hours? Once again, his unique skill set of silviculture and endurance sport paid off.
It was hot, and I was able to adjust and hydrate enough for me to sustain the whole 24 hours. But yes, it was definitely different than Canadian weather.
After going 24 hours straight, Moses had planted an astonishing 47,000 mangrove trees. And for a country with its own history with endurance sport, the man from Vancouver appears to have left a big impression with the Kenyans.
Go, Antoine. All right. More trees now. More trees, more trees.
Paul Johnson, Global News.
Incredible. And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Colleen Christie. Tonight's Your Canada is freshwater Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks for watching. Donna will be back with you tomorrow. Have a good night.